I have been in tears for the last 2 years trying to meet my daughter, and she has never let me once talk to her or see her. Fake Facebook account just to see pictures of Elena.
I'm afraid that if he does get to see my daughter, that he can run off with her, and there's nothing I can do to get her back.
Here we go, folks. Another wild ride on paternity court. Today's case is a real doozy with a mom who's been lying through her teeth for the past 30 years. Mr. Hagerty has been raising a daughter he thought was his own for nearly 3 decades. But now, his baby mama, Ms. Davis, is dropping a bombshell. He's not the dad.
Mr. Hagerty, you've opened your case in hopes of saving your relationship with your daughter. She has distanced herself from you, and you claim it's because her mother recently lied and claimed you are not her father. You plan to prove today what you've known for the last 30 years. You are her daddy. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Now, Mr. Hagerty is pleading his case, saying he's been the best dad he could be to Wanda. And Wanda's backing him up, saying he's been the only father she's ever known. But Ms. Davis is throwing a curveball, claiming Mr. Hagerty was just a playmate and that the real dad is some other guy. Ouch! That's gotta sting!
Why do you say Ms. Davis is a liar?
She lied to me, she lied to my daughter. When she first got pregnant, she said I was the dad. And after 29 years, I come to find out now that I might, or possibly that I'm not the father.
You've raised this beautiful young woman, and you've thought of her as your daughter and nothing else.
For the whole 29 years, yes, Your Honor.
But wait, there's more. Ms. Davis's own sister, Carolyn, steps up to the plate, saying that back in the day, Ms. Davis told the whole family that Mr. Hagerty was the dad. So now we've got a classic case of he said, she said, and it's anyone's guess who's telling the truth.
Yes, and she just thinks it's fun and cute, and it's not. What's cute about not knowing who your father is or lying to your daughter that you say that you're supposed to love? If you loved me, you wouldn't play games with me from jump, or this man.
So you grew up believing Mr. Hagerty was your biological father?
Yes, Your Honor.
Wanda's emotions are running high, and you can see the pain in her eyes. She's been lied to her whole life, and now she's left wondering who her real dad is. It's heartbreaking to watch, folks. And Mr. Hagerty is just as devastated, realizing that the little girl he's loved and raised may not be his after all.
My sister called me. She said me and Craig just got through doing, and she said I'm pregnant. And she told me and our family that Craig was Marzella's father.
Mr. Hagerty?
Mr. Hagerty.
She said it?
She said it.
She didn't name anybody else?
She didn't name no one else but Craig Hagerty.
But the plot thickens even more when Wanda reveals that there's another man who's been claiming to be her dad. Apparently, this guy showed up out of the blue, crying and saying he's her father. Wanda's even been spending time with him, and he's been checking in on the kids.
Why are you crying? Like, who are you? I don't know you. Why are you crying? Why are you looking at me just crying? And he was like, you don't know who I am? He was like, I'm your father. I'm like,
how old were you?
I was 19 years old, Your Honor. And I'm like, yes, Your Honor. Yes. He was calling me, he was checking on the kids, and when he showed me this picture of his mom.
Now, Ms. Davis is finally fessing up to her lies, admitting that she told Mr. Hagerty he was the dad, even though she knew the truth all along. And get this, she says she did it because she really wanted a baby with Mr. Hagerty, but had 4 miscarriages. Wow, talk about desperate measures.
The thing about it back then, I had a boyfriend and he had a girlfriend.
So now, was your boyfriend the gentleman that came to Miss Wandick, your daughter, crying?
Yes.
So
yes.
it's that man?
Yes. And Marzella was already conceived in my belly when I was playing with Mr. Hagerty.
The judge is trying to make sense of it all, and you can see the frustration on her face. She's got a daughter who's been lied to her whole life, a dad who's been robbed of his fatherhood, and a mom who's clearly got some serious issues. This is a mess of epic proportions, folks.
You've testified in court today that you were proud to be Miss Wandick's father.
Yes.
It's something you cherished, a relationship you valued.
Yes.
She said you were a wonderful father to her.
Right.
So the truth is, your commitment to this young woman was truly about love and about the belief that you were her father, even though you had no legal claim.
Yes.
And just when you think it can't get any crazier, the judge drops a bombshell. The birth certificate lists the other guy as the father, not Mr. Hagerty. So it seems Ms. Davis has been playing a twisted game of paternity keep away for decades. Unbelievable.
money. When this other man accumulated all this money, that's when she would say, that's who really your dad is. You need to get some money from him. So it was all about the money, because that's when she told me.
So when was this?
This was back in 2016, Your Honor. Other than that, she hasn't said anything about this other man being my dad.
As the episode comes to a close, we're left with more questions than answers. Who's the real dad? What's Ms. Davis's deal? And how will this all play out for Wanda and Mr. Hagerty? One thing's for sure, the DNA test resultats are in, and everyone is about to get some clarity.
Mr. Hagerty, you are not the father. Miss Wanda, are you okay, honey?
Something that could have been settled 29 years ago.
It's okay. I'm always gonna be there for you.
Well, 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 if it isn't another juicy case from the one and only paternity court, today we're diving into the twisted tale of a mother who just couldn't seem to keep her story straight. Get ready for some serious drama, folks, because this one's a doozy.
Ms. Bowman, you've dragged your daughter, Kalina, to court to save your relationship. You admit after years of deception and confusion, you now must prove to her that her actual biological father is Mr. James Stewart, who passed away 18 years ago. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, let's set the scene. Miss Bowman had been lying to her daughter Kalina for years about who her real father was. Can you imagine? Telling your kid one guy is their dad, then flipping the script and saying it's actually someone else. It's a messed up situation.
I've told her that another, Mr. Watson was her father.
Explain.
It all started when she was little. When I first met Mr. Stewart, met him at a company that I worked with, and we started working, became friends and everything, real close. We became sexual. It got to where I found out there was somebody else.
Now, the plot thickens when Kalina's supposed dad, Mr. Watson, decides to get involved. He shows up at Miss Bowman's house and demands a paternity test because he's not convinced Kalina is actually his kid. Ooh, the drama! But get this, when the results come back, it turns out Mr. Watson isn't the father after all. Shocker, I know. Miss Bowman then drops another bombshell, saying the real dad is actually a guy named James Stewart, who's been dead for 18 years. Yikes, this lady's got some serious skeletons in her closet.
So when did you find out that he was not?
I found out during this summer, going into high school, that he was not my father. Wow. I was forced to be taken out of my mother's house and go to his house where I had no contact with my mother.
Now, Kalina is understandably upset. Her whole life has been turned upside down, and she's not sure who to trust anymore. I mean, can you blame her? Her own mom has been feeding her lies for years. But hey, at least she's got Mr. Stewart's son, James, in her corner.
So, Miss Bowman, take me back to that day. Your daughter was crushed. I mean, she says it just broke her.
At the time, Kalina had just came over to my house. She had just moved in with me, and I happened to go to work one day, and Mr. Watson had recently got married, and his wife, she told him, "That's your child, you go get him."
And let's not forget about Miss Watson, Kalina's supposed grandma. She's got her own story to tell, and it's a doozy. Apparently, Miss Bowman had the audacity to forge a fake paternity test result and stick it in Miss Watson's mailbox, trying to convince her that Mr. Watson wasn't the dad. Wow, this lady will stop at nothing to get her way, huh? Talk about a desperate move.
Since you want to sit up here and say, "This ain't my daughter, prove it," I turned around and I went downtown and I requested a paternity test. The results came back, and I sat there and I told her, I said, I didn't do this to hurt you.
And so is it your assertion that you knew all of the time there was a question, or you knew for certain Mr. Watson wasn't?
I didn't know.
But the real kicker is when Miss Bowman finally fesses up in court. She admits that she fabricated that whole letter, all because she was in love with Mr. Watson and wanted him to think Kalina was his kid. Unbelievable. I mean, using your own child as a pawn to keep a man? This mom clearly has some serious issues to work through.
Put a letter in my mailbox with a piece of paper saying that James Stewart was not her father.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me see that evidence.
I got a long letter about how my son, Kalina, her feet, his heels, and her blood.
You're saying that Miss Bowman put a letter in your mailbox?
Yes, ma'am. And Kate was born in January. She gave me the letter in February.
And just when you think it couldn't get any crazier, the court drops an absolute bombshell.
In the case of Bowman versus Bowman, it has been determined by this court that James Stewart and Kalina Bowman are related.
Mr. Matherson claims that his baby mama, Miss Robinson, is a compulsive liar. Apparently, she's been dodging a paternity test for the last 3 years, and he's finally had enough. He's convinced that her 3-year-old son, Jaden, isn't even his kid. Ooh. Let's see where this goes.
Mr. Matherson, you and your mother have demanded the defendant, Ms. Robinson, appear in court today because you claim you are not the father of her 3-year-old son, Jaden, and say she's been ducking a paternity test for years. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Robinson, you and your mother say Mr. Matherson is known and he needs to grow up and stop running from his responsibilities. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
But wait, it gets better. Miss Robinson is firing back, saying that Mr. Matherson is the one who's been MIA. She claims he's been trying to take Jaden back to Ohio without her permission. Yikes, these two are really going at it, huh? And get this, there's even another guy, Mr. Collins, who Miss Robinson is apparently dating now. Mr. Matherson seems to think he might be the real father.
So, Ms. Robinson, are you keeping Jaden away from Ms. Brooks and Mr. Matherson?
Right now, Your Honor, I am.
Why?
Because Tawana's not responsible. I also sent the threat that my son, when he got my son, he was going to take him back to Ohio. So, yes, Your Honor, I did not.
Yes, I was going to take him to Ohio to see my family if he was mine.
Now, the judge is trying to get to the bottom of all this, but these two just won't stop bickering. It's like they're speaking different languages or something. One minute, they're accusing each other of being money hungry, and the next, they're arguing about who's the real father. I'm getting whiplash just trying to keep up.
Mr. Matherson, what are you saying?
I wanted my son to be a junior. My name is no part of his name, period. That's for one.
Oh, so do you feel because they never considered giving Jaden your name that was somehow an indication that he may not be yours?
Your Honor, I didn't feel like I should have to give him his last name because at the same time, we was not married.
And can we talk about the way they're talking about this poor kid, Jaden? I mean, they're throwing around words like promiscuous and vindictive, and it's just heartbreaking. This little boy is caught in the middle of all this drama, and he's probably so confused. It's enough to make you want to reach through the screen and give him a big ol' hug.
I'm 100% sure I'm not his father because I wasn't even talking to Alexis on that level at that time.
Are you all in a relationship or are you friends?
Don't say nothing.
And we've been friends for 5 years. Okay. Since they've been knowing each other,
So you've been friends for 5 years?
Correct.
Okay, so now.
We're in a relationship right now.
Now you're in a relationship. How long have you all been in this relationship?
About 3 months.
But the real kicker is when the judge finally gets the paternity test results. Turns out, Mr. Matherson is the daddy after all. You'd think that would be a happy moment, right? Nope, these two are still at each other's throats. Mr. Matherson is all excited, but Miss Robinson is like, you're not on the birth certificate, so good luck with that.
Mr. Matherson, you are the father. That's your little boy.
Now, can we see him?
Your Honor.
Now, can we see him?
May I have that paper?
Now, honey, I'm going to get a copy of
custody?
it. This was about to have that. That's what's going on.
May I have custody?
Partial.
Partial, full?
Partial.
Hold on.
Ashley Salvo is a young mom who claims she only slept with one guy around the time she got pregnant, a Mr. Gonzalez. But he's not buying it and thinks she was sleeping around with multiple men, including his best friend.
Ms. Salvo, you claim that around the time you conceived your 1-year-old daughter, Amaya, you carried on a sexual relationship with the defendant, Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes, Your Honor.
Today you say you desperately want to prove Mr. Gonzalez is her biological father because it will break your heart if she has to grow up without a dad.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, let's break this down. Ashley says she only hooked up with Gonzalez one time, and that's how she got pregnant with little Amaya. But Gonzalez is telling a different story. He says they were sleeping together for months, and he even caught Ashley's mom seeing him naked in the kitchen one time. Awkward!
He knows Amaya's his daughter, but he refuses to take care of him. I've never, ever had sex with any Hispanic man but him. I prefer black people. I don't like Hispanic men. I was intoxicated at the time. I was drunk, he came over, he got me at the right time.
Okay, so you had sex with him just one time?
Yes.
And get this, Gonzalez also claims Ashley's best friend had naked pics of her on his phone. He thinks this friend could be the real dad, but Ashley is straight up denying all of this. She says she's only been with 2 guys during that time, Gonzalez and her ex-boyfriend. Someone's not telling the whole truth here.
She knew I had a fiance at the time, so I used to tell my fiance I'm gonna go to the hair salon or something to go get my braids done, but really, I used to go to Ashley's house to go get my hair done and get a little treat.
And now, Ms. Salvo, you claim that this testimony is false. It's incorrect.
Yes, Your Honor. the whole part 6 times. That's ridiculous.
Now, the ex-boyfriend is a whole other story. Ashley says she thought Amaya might be his at first, but then she looked at the baby and was like, nopey, not a chance. Apparently, Amaya just looks way too Hispanic to be her ex's kid.
Were you using protection with your boyfriend?
Periodically, but not as
Not
much.
consistently.
Yeah.
And so, is there any reason why your boyfriend's not in court today as one of the potential fathers?
The reason we stopped with contact because, I mean, he did help me financially when I was pregnant because at first I thought that she was his.
But the real kicker is when Gonzalez claims he saw some random Hispanic guy giving him the stink eye, and he thinks this guy wanted to be the baby daddy. Ashley shuts that down real quick, saying the guy's just been her friend since elementary school. Uh-oh, looks like someone's got some explaining to do.
She has too much of him. She looks way too much. The dimple, she has one dimple just like he does. The shape of his eyebrows, that's him. Her nose, I have a picture that I can show you. They're twins.
What is that you're holding, ma'am?
It's a picture of my daughter with her one dimple.
Jerome, will you please pass that evidence to me?
And let's not forget about Ashley's current fiance, Felicia. She's been stepping up big time, buying diapers, wipes, and even a crib for little Amaya. Gonzalez says he's been helping out too, but Ashley's calling his bluff. She says all he's done is buy a couple of toothbrushes and some toothpaste.
I mean, if I had a picture of my current ex-boyfriend's kids.
Well, you know the only way to truly exclude a potential father in a paternity situation is a DNA test.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you test your ex at all?
I did test him.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, and what happened?
He's not the father.
But you know what they say, the truth always comes out in the end. And when the DNA results are finally revealed, well...
Mr. Gonzalez, it has been determined by this court that you are not the father.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Can I still come around and see Amaya and help her out if I can? Because for a year and 4 or 5 months, she's been my daughter and she's still gonna be my daughter.
We've got a love triangle gone wrong, with a baby caught in the middle. Mr. Webb thinks he might be the father of little Elena, and Miss Forrest, Elena's mom, is desperately trying to keep him away. Looks like this is gonna be one messy situation. Let's dive in and see how this plays out.
You claim the defendant, Mrs. Forrest, left you for dead only to find out once you got out of a coma that she was pregnant and that the baby could be yours or her husband.
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Forrest, you and your husband are here today desperate to put an end to this drama. You say you have no doubt your daughter's biological father is indeed your husband.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Webb has been waiting 2 whole years to get this paternity test done. He's convinced that Miss Forrest left him for dead and then got pregnant with his kid. But Miss Forrest is adamant that her husband, Mr. Forrest, is the father.
Yes, we was in love, but towards the end, I was on life support.
No, that's not how it
And
happened.
As soon as I got out the hospital, I had got a phone call saying that she was pregnant. I heard it from my aunt first, but on my way to Illinois with my dad.
Now, Miss Forrest admits that she and Mr. Webb did have a fling, but she swears up and down that her husband is the dad. Mr. Webb, on the other hand, thinks Miss Forrest was cheating on him with other guys too. He's got some wild theories about her coming home late from work and money going missing from her paychecks.
She would get off at 10 o'clock. It would take at least 15 minutes to get home, but she would come in at 11 to 11:30.
It took about 45 minutes to get from where I was working.
So it was missing time and missing money.
Yes, Your
Where
Honor.
she was MIA.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
From where she worked at, and I know for a fact it took 45 minutes to get from her work
No,
to
Your Honor.
the house.
Uh-oh. It looks like Mr. Webb has some evidence up his sleeve. A letter from his mom saying he was on life support when Miss Forrest came to get his stuff. But Miss Forrest is sticking to her story, saying they broke up a few days before he ended up in the hospital.
They broke up like 3 days, from my knowledge, to like 3 days before he ever went into a coma.
No, Your Honor, I did not have
We were
any
fighting,
idea that
we were over,
split
and
up.
that was
Having problems.
I had called my dad for a bus ticket to Alabama. 2 hours after I got off the phone with him, I had ended up on life support.
So this is a statement from your mom?
That is a statement from my mom.
Turns out Miss Forrest found out she was pregnant in August, but Mr. Webb says she told him it was September. And get this, Miss Forrest is convinced her husband is the dad because the baby was born in May, which lines up with when she was only sleeping with him. But wait, didn't she and Mr. Webb have a little rendezvous right before he ended up in the hospital?
Mr. Webb, how did you find out she was pregnant?
She had called me the day that I got out of the hospital. I was on my way to Illinois with my dad. I got a phone call. We had a discussion. She said that I may be the father, but then again, I may not be because she was back with Mr. Forrest.
Mr. Webb is really feeling the pain of not being able to see his little girl. He's tried reaching out, but Miss Forrest has been blocking him at every turn. She's worried he's going to take the baby and run, but Mr. Webb just wants a chance to bond with his daughter. The judge is starting to see that Miss Forrest might be a little too protective here.
My daughter was born on May 9th of 2013.
Okay.
And then you take it back 9 months later, that takes it to the week of August 26th through August 31st.
August 26th through August 31st, you were sleeping with your...
Just my husband.
The thing about it, Your Honor, is...
All right, it's the moment of truth. The DNA results are in, and the judge is about to reveal who the real daddy is. Mr. Webb is on the edge of his seat, hoping against hope that this is his chance to be a father. Miss Forrest, on the other hand, looks like she's about to have a heart attack.
As to whether her biological father is Mr. Webb or Mr. Forrest, it has been determined by this court that her biological father is Mr. Webb.